All right, I'm here with veteran AAP Sports Journalist Darren Walton. Darren, massive news over the past few days, mate. Tim Tszyu, unfortunate result in the rematch against Sebastian Fundora. Mate, you were there. Your sort of initial thoughts?
Well, I was definitely surprised. I've got to say, I did go in pretty confident that Tim would win this return bout. But the one fear I did have going into the fight, I must say, after speaking to the great Johnny Lewis, Tim's obviously father's legendary trainer, and he was saying that although Tim was supremely confident in their camp, confident that he had a lot more time to prepare for Sebastian Fundora, Johnny was also concerned that Fundora had as much time to prepare for the best of what he'd seen from Tim Tszyu in the first two rounds, which Tszyu won in the first fight. And the bottom line is Fundora prepared and adjusted better than Tim Tszyu did in this fight.
Mm. What are your thoughts on, I guess, Tim's demeanour leading into fight week? I mean, everyone seemed pretty confident over there, but then, that opening round, he gets knocked down and the fight completely changed.
Well, I didn't mind Tim's sort of mindset and the way he was carrying himself in the lead up. He was confident without being overly cocky like he had been in a couple of his previous fights, particularly against Murtazaliev. I thought he was way too cocky going to that. Didn't do enough homework, enough analysis on the Russian. This time I thought that, he kept saying his sole focus was Fundora. He wasn't looking forward ahead to anybody else. So I didn't mind that. But I've got to say that he must have been surprised by, Fundora's improved, sort of fighting abilities as well. He came out very aggressively. He's relied on his jab, his great reach to win a lot of his fights. But he came at Tszyu, and every time Tim sort of had to go after him, he left himself exposed. And obviously getting dropped in the first round was a huge setback.
Mm. You've covered some of the biggest sporting events there is, mate. This sort of setback for Tim Tszyu, how big is it?
Oh, it's monumental. I think everyone can appreciate that he's at a career crossroad once again. I think he was in a really fortunate position to be back fighting for a world title, not only this one, but against Bakram last October. That was like basically 6 months after losing to Fundora. Fundora's team were very sporting, I think, to give Tim Tszyu a rematch, and it was a deserved one in my opinion, because let's be honest, that elbow that he copped last year changed the course of not only that first fight, but the course of Tim Tszyu's career. So where he's at now, it's a big question mark. The one thing he has in his favour is that the American promoters really love his warrior style. He's a throwback. He's prepared to have a go. But having said that, he's still going to have to sort of take a long path back to sort of world title chances if indeed he wants to go down that path.
Now, you've written a great article today, mate. You've labelled it Summit Fever. Can you sort of explain the sort of thinking there?
Well, I never really thought that I'd ever be quoting a climbing expert about Tim Tszyu, but I think the analogy is fascinating. I know this climbing expert. I've known for a long time, and we just got chatting before this Fundora return bout, and he was really concerned that Tim Tszyu had rushed coming back from the first fight, the battering, the bloodbath when he copped that elbow. And the way he sees it is that climbing a mountain is very similar to trying to win a world boxing title. You've got to have everything in order. You've got to have your team in order. You've got to have your bags packed, you've got your medical equipment, your supplies, your food, your oxygen, and you've got to start one by one, camp 3, camp 2, camp 1. And if you ever encounter a setback, be that an injury, a storm, you've got to be prepared to back off. And this climbing expert who lost his uncle, who was an Australian Army sergeant in 1971, he literally died. He was swept off the tallest mountain in Papua New Guinea, and his body was never recovered. There's a plaque there where he was last seen. So it's quite a moving sort of tale. And the analogy is amazing because the way he sees it is that Tim Tszyu's storm was when he walked into the elbow of Fundora. He said then he should have backed off, he should have retreated and gone immediately back down to base camp. and then even aborted the whole operation, turned his season off and start again, reset. But instead, he tried to climb that mountain too soon, and he hasn't quite been the same boxer since.
No, it's a really good.
When you suffer from that sort of fate, that's called summit fever. So that's where it came from.
No, it's a really good perspective because, after that Fundora fight, he goes straight into the Buckram fight, gets battered in that fight, and then, he has one tune-up and then straight back into this fight. I think everyone involved in Tim Tszyu must have just underestimated either Fundora or Buckram, or I don't know, but the question's got to be asked, why,
Well, look, I'm not privy to the reasons why Tim rushed his return last year. It could be any number of things. It could have been his insatiable desire to be a world champion again. He often talks about his pursuit of greatness. He wants to create a family legacy for him, Costa, potentially even his younger brother, undefeated, Nikita. They want to be the greatest boxing name in history. It could be obligations with promoters. Obviously, there's huge financial ramifications if he pulls out of that initial fight that we all remember that he was supposed to fight Keith Thurman. Instead, he took Fundora on, barely 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks notice. Maybe if he just had even after taking that, once he hits that storm, the elbow, go back to base camp. Don't rush it.
Said earlier, mate, you've covered some of the biggest sporting events, some of the biggest sportsmen and women, in history. Can Tim Tszyu bounce back?
I think he can bounce back. I think he's one hell of a fighter. We've seen that. I just don't think we've seen the best of Tim Tszyu ever since he ran into that elbow. That precipitated 3 of his, 3 losses from his last 4 fights. I think he needs to go back to his more watchful, never get hit, don't get hit, as his father's mantra, don't get hit. We've seen him get hit so many times. I think he was only dropped twice in his first 24 fights. He's been dropped 5 times in his last 3 now, either side of a win over Joey Spencer. So that's unheard of. He needs to pull back the gung-ho tactics, I believe. I'm no boxing aficionado like yourself, but that would be my way of thinking. He's definitely got the weapons, the strike power, the skill, but it's going to be a long haul back.
Last one, mate. Where's Australian boxing go from here? There's a lot of stars, Jai McAllister and the like, Liam Paro, this, that, you got Nikita out there. What do you see for the immediate future of Australian boxing while Tim Tszyu sort of on the sidelines?
Well, I think it'd be unfair to say that the future of Australian boxing is grim. Tim Tszyu is just one of many world-class fighters in Australia. You mentioned Opataya, who's clearly the number one. He doesn't quite get the fanfare. Tim Tszyu is just undoubtedly the Australian pin-up for Australian boxing. He's a warrior. People know him. People love him. He's got the name. Nikita is definitely got a big future in the sport. It's going to be a slow trajectory for him. Obviously, unbeaten in 10 fights. He needs to clean up everyone in Australia domestically before they even consider trying to take him to the US, because he's obviously seen how his brothers, sort of slipped up a few times over there now. But yeah, Australian boxing's bright, but they definitely need Tim Tszyu, at the forefront.
Nice one, mate. Always appreciate your time. Thanks for jumping on.
No worries, big dog.